Hello, everybody. I'm your boss, Joe Boss, and welcome to another daily plan. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a pretty mixed day. Depending on what asset you look at, you are jumping up for joy or scratching your head why you didn't catch the move some of these other assets got. It's hard to say if this is a quote unquote risk on move. I wouldn't classify today as a quote unquote risk on day. It really is idiosyncratic depending on the asset that you're trading. Right here off the bat on the dollar, we've had a nice positive drift into the day, fairly low volatility. But as soon as you start checking out the equity indices, also effectively the same thing. Bit more of a negative drift on the NQ. We can check out the Dow. The Dow had a nice recovery from the dip at the end of last week. Russell, a really nice continuation and recovery from this dip also at the end of last week. And the Nikkei holding sideways until the Ministry of Finance intervenes on the end, essentially. The dollar itself, right, had this positive drift. And tomorrow is going to be the week ahead stream. And then on, I believe, Sunday, I'll be doing the month ahead trade plan. So let's go ahead and break down the moves that we've had so far here on the dollar pairs. It's been negative the first half of the day, positive the second half of the day. So net bearish, not so great, but that's probably the likely low. That was the low that we were expecting here. But obviously this was an earlier expectation, right? This is last Friday, the 22nd of March. We were expecting the low down here. Instead, we went up and then down. So we got a flip of our expectations instead of down and then up. Depending on how the PCE is going to come out, and inflation data in the United States looks like it's going to reaccelerate. And just before I continue the analysis here on the dollar pairs, in the commodities sphere, everyone is jumping up and down for joy right now. Oil is up $1.20 roughly, $1.18. And it's reached this spot here. I believe this is going to be the last trading day for the week because tomorrow's a holiday. But it seems like next week we're going to be trading in the 44 handle. That is a real risk of trading in the 44 handle next week. On this super strong continuation here. Nat gas, it's holding up. Had a huge gap up on this day. It's drifted lower, spiked here at the end. So far, it's been holding this range since it fell off a cliff in February. So we'll see if nat gas continues. And this is gasoline. And gasoline has just been going up and up and up. And this is one of the major contributing factors to inflation in February and now likely to be in March. And seeing this gave us some hope of, okay, maybe the inflation isn't going to be absolutely terrible if this starts trending lower, and now that hope is just totally dashed away. And then you're probably going to look at this chart on gold and be like, oh my God. That's pretty much it, right? Oh my God. The thing moved $36 here in the last 12 hours. It has been a super strong trend here for the day. The trend kind of started here, 3 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and it's been on a rip roar and a tear into the tail here. And then even when you look at it on a weekly range, you do not trade this high up, this far up for a given week very frequently. 92% of the time, your high for the week is somewhere lower. So this is definitely a huge, huge momentum continuation. And now eyes are on 2,300 for gold. Silver also saw a bump up today on that front. Platinum saw a bump up today. Copper, not so much. Probably we'll get into this stuff with China and iron, and particularly iron ore. Let me go ahead, switch this to a daily chart, hide these indicators, and turn this into a line chart. Iron ore fell 8% today after having another drop of 9.5% that day. Like iron ore, since the beginning of the year, pretty much right here on the 3rd of January, has just been falling off a cliff. Now, in a lot of respects, this is mostly going to be impacting China and Australia. So we'll see the impact in their currencies and their economic data. This really isn't that great. Westpac is expecting us to kind of stay in this $100, $110 range from here. But it's fair to say going below 100 here on iron ore, and again, this is China, can impact the Australian economy quite significantly. And hopefully I'll have more to say on that once we get more data and more outlooks on this move and how significant this move is actually going to end up being. Okay. So that would be the commodities end of stuff. And we can also check out cocoa, right? It's still holding up here after this insane run up from the beginning of the year. Not like this wasn't a nice continuous run up. This actually kind of looks like a hyperwave now that I look at it. Good old hyperwave. Anyways, let's go ahead, hop into currencies. Yield spreads are still in focus on the outlooks side from the institutions. So they're looking at this and saying, okay, that's all super red. New Zealand dollar. All this is, we just opened on a new trading day, so that's why all this here says 0, because the yields are effectively the same as yesterday's right now. So I'm just focusing on this half here, which is, yeah, that's bearish. If I go ahead and look at the ranges, yeah, we hit the likely low we expected for the week. We didn't hit the high up move. That again, that's because we didn't go down right off the bat. We held up here, so we're likely going to end up closing sideways. On the pound side of things, yeah, we're effectively closing where we expected, but we did not get the kind of volatility we were expecting. On the euro, this is actually something I did trade. I did take a short right here, so I'm sitting pretty, and I took the short because of the negative yield spreads. Continuing on, I actually took, I think it was on Aussie, a shot short right here that I exited, thankfully, because I would have been stopped out of that. So I exited about halfway through that. And frankly, this trade would be making about as much money as this euro dollar is making at the moment. So I'm sitting pretty. I'm sitting pretty here. We did hit again the expected low we wanted for the week, but not the high. Nowhere near that closing expectation. And definitely not hitting this low at the time we expected to hit this low at. So expectations were off this week. They have been off quite frequently. Again, next week we had some good hits throughout the week. That was flat out wrong because, well, the yield spreads immediately reversed here. So, yeah, yield spreads are king. So this is going to update your expectations from, hey, everything's nice and green and hunky dory. Let's expect that continues on into time. Nope. Yield spreads say nope. And the yield spreads still quite negative. The expectations going forward are actually still for more dollar strength. At some point for the yen strength to come in. Aussie yen just holding in there. Dollar yen very, very sideways. Still positive yield spreads here, but sideways more or less because people are really cautious about whether or not the Ministry of Finance is actually going to intervene and when they'll intervene, because this is, people are saying they're going to intervene at 152. So no one wants to wants to play chicken with the Ministry of Finance right now. So everyone is sideways, range bound on this. And that's what I mean by the headline of this video being everything's kind of a mixed bag. Dollar yen here is just flat and sideways when just last week you were seeing some incredibly volatile moves for the month. And the yield spreads were just kicking it around so much. And then you go and you look at something like gold, and it's up and away, new highs. So everything is mixed. Things are quite idiosyncratic at the moment. And we'll be doing a week ahead stream tomorrow to set our expectations for the week to come as I go and read some more outlooks. It's not looking good for risk on plays, frankly. For the commodities plays, this looks very momentum heavy. The inflation coming in and the likely reacceleration of inflation does seem to be a contributing factor to helping those commodities run. But now you have momentum and a reacceleration of inflation likely that can send those commodities higher and higher, and potentially higher than you think they're going to go, just like what happened with what a lot of analysts just got with the recent move here on gold and a few other commodities, frankly. Let's see, did I miss any particular chart? I mean, there's euro pound. This one, a lot of people were long. A lot of institutions were long on euro pound. And guess what? Your negative yield spreads started coming in and pulling this thing down quite a bit. I didn't set any expectations on this pair because a lot of those bullish expectations were like on a 1 month, 3 month time horizon. So we can go ahead and actually check that out now. Yeah, likely high there, likely low there. Nice bullish yield spread. That bullish yield spread, it has really let up, hasn't it? Yeah. So things are still looking mixed, slightly positive for euro pound as a cross. Aussie New Zealand is still running higher. A lot of people are watching this for potential reversals into next month, because you can actually see the yield spreads were increasing and getting more bullish around here and more bullish, and now you're starting to see a tapering off of the strength in your yield spreads. Most of it is just coming from long-term momentum from 25 trading days ago. So the short-term yield spread movement isn't great, and people are getting more pessimistic about this thing going higher. But now's the time on some of these crosses just to really watch your back and to really watch the economies that you're trading on these cross pairs. Let's see, anything else? Dollar CAD. So the Canadian dollar actually got stronger. And this is actually, frankly, in line with our expectations. We didn't get this up move, but we are closing within error of our closing expectation for the week. It's probably one of the few currencies that actually had a fairly decent risk on move. And to be frank, we can kind of thank oil for this move on the Canadian. That's who you think, Canadians, for your currency not devaluing even further. The yield spreads, though, also did play some contributory factor here. And it's more or less a matter of, well, does this continue and accelerate going into the month ahead? Or is this going to be another higher low sometime next week, right? It just drifts down to just above or at 135, finds its low, and then continues higher on accelerating US inflation. Because accelerating US inflation would make the Fed definitely more hawkish. So let's go ahead and check out crypto here real quick. So far, nothing crazy. Just nothing crazy on the day. Yeah, you can see it's up 2%. This is a spot I just would be concerned about. You can see it, yeah, you had your spikes here, it's going sideways. That's not the crazy part. I'm concerned about another higher high, and then at that point you're catching clouds. It becomes a hard thing to guess where the high comes in on the week. It really does become a hard thing to figure out. So I'd be cautious on shorting this even now. For crypto, I like to use a different tool that looks at some order book information, something that Joe Saz works on. But what was it? We had some news last Tuesday. Yeah, we had some news last Tuesday that Ethereum and Litecoin are being considered commodities. Now, I think in that stream I did a misinterpretation and said, oh, that means they're not going to get their ETF. I thought in my head, I had read security. So if Litecoin and Ethereum were declared securities, they would not be getting their ETF. But the CFTC's lawsuit came out claiming Litecoin and Ethereum are commodities. And now that's going to make it harder for people who think Ethereum is a security. I'm now on the fence about that, whether Ethereum is a security. It's going to be a huge legal fight. And the SEC really did screw up in their case on Ripple and their case on Ethereum. So just through some US legal screw ups, you're probably going to end up with potentially a Ripple ETF, an Ethereum ETF, a Litecoin ETF. All these major cryptos are at some point or another going to have their day in the limelight as ETFs. And the same sort of thing you saw in Bitcoin when its ETFs started getting approved and you've had this crazy run up. Crypto definitely has a future ahead of it. Real quick, just check out the equities. Wow. Capital One is doing phenomenal today, 3%. And Discovery also doing phenomenal today. And these two companies, Discovery and Capital One, are trying to do a merger and effectively become the largest credit card company in the United States. So right now they're very closely correlated since that, because that's still on the table. And of course, oil goes up. Oil companies tend to go up. There's Chevron doing well. All in all, that's pretty much everything that I have as far as analysis for today. It's fairly choppy for a lot of assets. But if you've got some kind of commodities exposure or inflation exposure, it has been particularly phenomenal today. Particularly phenomenal. And tomorrow's stream is going to be the week ahead trade plan stream. So make sure you tune in for that. And then next Sunday, or maybe on Monday, I'll do it. It's going to be the month ahead trade plan stream. So we got two major streams for drawing these expectations ahead of us. And we'll see how closely those expectations line up as we trade throughout the month of April and throughout next week. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in a bit.